All right, fellas, let's start with some Cardinals baseball. What a weekend. What a team. What a ride, to quote the 2011 World Series championship team, as Joe Buck said when they made their final out. And they were back in town, of course, for the weekend. And then this current Cardinals bunch, which we've compared to the 2011 team. And also, let's be real, we've really criticized this team for much of the season, for underperforming, and for maybe not doing more at the trade deadline and this and that. And they're basically shoving it all right in our faces because the Cardinals have won 8 straight. They're in that second wild card spot where they're now 3 games ahead of the Reds. They're 3.5 games ahead of both the Philadelphia Phillies and the San Diego Padres. And when we really complained about the Cardinals for most of the year when they were around 500, we said, beat the good teams. Prove it. And folks, they've proven it. They're beating the good teams. They're winning series. They're splitting with the Dodgers. They're winning series against the Reds. And here they go, a San Diego Padres team that absolutely needed this series to have any chance. And the Cardinals swept them right out of St. Louis. You got to give them the love.
Yeah. You remember, let's see. They don't have enough pitching. Got to go get some arms. Mike Schultz got to use a better. Oh, wait, all that stuff is dead now.
Well, it did happen, though.
It happened.
It happened.
But all those things are dead now because it's all about, hey, they are playing their absolute best baseball that I think they could possibly play right now. Everyone is giving their contribution. And when that's going right, there's no better feeling if you're a sports fan because it's even if you were a guy on that team right now, you can't wait to get to the ballpark. You're like, who's next? Let's go play.
And it's truly the case of, we discussed this last week. For a while there, you were waiting for the Cardinals to blow a lead. And it was happening. And the game got late, and something happened in the bullpen, and you didn't feel good about the Cardinals' chances of closing out those games. And in many times, you had some really, really bad losses. And in the matter of a month or so, my mindset has totally flipped in the sense of now when I watch the Cardinals, I'm expecting them to come back and win, right? Like Saturday night, I want to get into that game because that was a fascinating game. You had the 2011 World Series championship team there where they weren't going to lose that game. You had an awful umpired game, which we will get into. It was kind of awful on both sides, except for it hurt the Cardinals much more. And yet still, when I'm watching that game, in my brain, I always thought the Cardinals were going to come back to win. And a month ago, I did not think about that with this team. But right now, everything's rocking and rolling. And look, we know they're not going to win the division. We understand, okay, they're not going to win 95, 100 games. We all get that. They're not to that elite level of 2011 to 2015. We understand all of those things. But guess what? For the last month or so, and specifically the last 2 weeks, they are now playing really, really good baseball. And maybe that means they're the second wild card and they lose to the Dodgers or Giants. I don't know, okay? They put themselves in that spot where they're going to play one 9-inning game for their playoff future if they get into that spot. But right now, you got to talk about the games you're seeing, and the Cardinals are playing really well.
You said something there. Well, they're not at that elite level. Not yet.
Well, for the whole season.
Right. But if they figure, let's see what happens in this Milwaukee series. If they find a way to keep, and I'm not saying they're going to continue, but if they do, then you got to start going, wait a minute, maybe they are an elite level team. But we'll wait and see. But right now, they've worked their way into the conversation.
At least it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think they were going to be even within, I said this, 4.5 games. Because they were 8.5 out at one point. I was like, there's no chance they'll get to they'll get to 4.5 and then they'll fade out. They haven't faded. They've jumped ahead of that. And like you said, now there's only 2 weeks left in the season. You're almost to the point where you go, it's going to be really tough for them to lose this thing now. And that's a bad thing. You don't want to jinx it, but there really is truth in that, the way they're ascending now, knowing you've got a lot of games with the Cubs. Yes, you have the Brewers, but you got a lot of these games left with the Cubs. You're going, you really got to work hard to lose now.
And look at the Reds, for example. Okay, the Reds, they're not going through here and beating the teams they're supposed to beat, and they have all the Pirates all over their schedule. Jesse Winker just goes back on the injured list. Okay, and then the Padres, So my thinking about 2 months ago, when the Cardinals, at the time, the Cardinals were about 10 games-ish out of both spots, of the division and the wild card. And I just didn't think that San Diego was going to collapse to a point where they would allow another team to grab that spot. Remember, for most of this season, through about 100 or so games, the NL West had 3 fantastic teams. And now they have 2 with the Dodgers and the Giants. But when you watch that San Diego Padres team, and they have a very exciting lineup. They have Fernando Tatis Jr., they have Manny Machado, they got a nice lineup.
Although they hate each other, but go ahead.
Well, I want to talk about that as well in a second. But they have no pitching. When I say no pitching, I'm talking about, look at the Philadelphia Phillies. They are right in the mix. The Phillies are 3.5 games back, and they said, Vince Velasquez, sorry about ya, we're releasing you. The Phillies are as much in the mix, actually the exact same amount. They have the same record. The Phillies and Padres are 76 and 73. They're both 3.5 games behind the Cardinals in the second wild card. And the second Vince Velasquez was let go, the Padres are so desperate, they picked him up and started a enormous game against the Cardinals. And then the other game, the Saturday game, we'll talk about the strike zone in a second, but I can't think of a more demoralizing loss than when you finally get a great starting pitching performance. And a lot of that had to do with a strike zone that was an extra foot wide on the outside corner. But still, you are begging for a good starting pitching performance. And Yu Darvish goes, 7, strikes out 9, and you can't win that game. That had to be the most demoralizing loss for the Padres. They lose the next day, and they get swept. Look, I know mathematically they're in it, but to me, the Padres are done.
They, first off, addressing that fight, that no one in that, on the media, to the media, I should say, has addressed that with the San Diego media or anybody. And
I was going to ask that, Jim, because no one talked about. They saw this thing, but no one even no one said he had a quote on this or this. They were all over each other. Machado was all over him.
They left. Who was it? Cronenworth was the guy who spoke after the game for them, and he didn't have much to say about it. Tingler didn't address it too much either. I mean, no one has addressed it. They didn't even make either of those guys available on Saturday or Sunday to the media. Machado and Tatis were not available in their Zoom calls, and they got issues with that. We can sit here and say it's a family, and guys are being guys, and we're all. I don't think so, especially if you don't address it, and just at least you got to say something, and because the video's out there. I mean, heck, everybody saw it. There was somebody who was right there on the side of the dugout where their seats were. And they had it. And you're just like,
there's more
goodness.
to it than that.
Yeah.
Look, I've seen these fights before. That's not just like I'm mad at you now.
It's been building, right?
Yes. Just like with you and your wife or whatever the case is. Like it builds. I'm just, not that Kate and I are doing pretty good. No, we're fine. I told you I got graded B for the wedding. That's all that matters.
Attaboy.
Here's the point. I've seen this in locker rooms, but that's a internal built-up thing where like he's a big boy. You're both making a ton of money or whatever. You're both your superstars. You're getting a lot of attention. And Machado, probably, I'm guessing he's older than Tatis. I don't know, but he put his foot down on something. So they've been losing games. They're pissed off. They're getting ridiculed in their town. And the big boys got pissed at each other. That's healthy. That could be healthy. But that's not just like you stepped on my foot real quick. I'm reacting to it.
By the way, the gentleman, let's give him a shout out. My guy Joe Yancey, he's the one, and he has a sports blog called bozosports.com, by the way, which I checked out. So he was the one that got the original video. He had seats right there where he could see, and he got 2.7 million views just on Twitter. I haven't looked at other sites. He allowed me to post it on YouTube. I was texting with him over the weekend. So 2.7 million views on Twitter of that exchange between Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado. And then he also posted a video where I don't think we're reading too much into this either. He posted a video of after the fact, later on in the game. Every single member of the Padres was on the top step of the dugout, and there was one singular person sitting on the bench. and it was Fernando Tatis Jr.
Yeah,
and look,
he's bitching, dude.
Oh yeah,
He's
and guys bitch and they're mad about calls and all that. I get it. I don't think it's as huge of a deal as some people, and I say it for this reason. Okay, that was an awful strike zone in the game, and players were really frustrated. And it did seem like to me that Manny Machado, in a way that he did call him out, he was absolutely swearing, but he's basically saying this isn't effing about you. Like, don't get run. We need you. We need every single game right now.
Yep.
We need you to stay in and be a team member and not get ejected. So I can see how that's a little big brother, little brother type situation going on there.
Yeah, no, but it could look. It's still more to just that initial moment. Okay,
right.
So that's what I'm saying. But that doesn't mean it could turn. It's going to be all negative from here on out. Like sometimes you need that, but there's certainly more to it than whatever happened that particular night. Like they've been getting their ass kicked, and he's probably pouty. I'm young. I deserve. It's about me. Like sometimes the older cats can be like, dude, no, man, no. We're all in this. We're all busting our butts. Let's go here. So it's actually cool to see, man. I like to see passion like that. Like it wasn't over. No one, it wasn't crazy. It was a little embarrassing for the organization, but sometimes, damn, you need that kind of stuff. So I'm actually interested to see how they react to it. Could go either way. He could keep pouting, and the guys hate him, and they're like, it's not about you, or he could figure it out and be like, no, all right, I got to be a big boy and do my thing.
It's also funny that the person who is giving the advice is Manny Machado. Just because over the years, Manny Machado came out and flat said once, I'm not Johnny Hustle. Remember that? That was his comment.
I do remember.
I am not Johnny Hustle. I am not going to really run out hard on my ground balls and all that.
So if he's chirping you, then geez.
That's what's
really
hilarious
bad.
about it. I just think, I'm sure these guys have a relationship, and I'm not in the clubhouse, but there could be a big brother, little brother situation, and also you have more of a veteran player who's trying to keep a younger player in check, and then throw on top of it, man, if you're a Padres player, it has to be the most frustrating last couple months where you guys are rocking and rolling, and you don't do much at all at the trade deadline. You don't address the starting pitching. There was a report out there, if you remember, on trade deadline day, Ken Rosenthal said Max Scherzer is going to the Padres. And I don't know what happened, but he didn't go there. He went to the Dodgers. And that's what they needed. Then they get Jake Arrieta. He's not working out. They have a million injuries. They're picking up Vince Velasquez.
Volcano,
the
man.
Day,
Pompeii.
right, so that's the thing. It's also it's the perfect storm of frustration and a terrible strike zone, a terrible loss, and a team that cannot win a baseball game. And as you said, Cam, it was a volcano that boiled over.
But I'll tell you this, though. Let me defend Machado, though. Like, maybe he said that. Okay, fine. But that guy's worth $300 million. What did he sign for? Like, so he's...
Well, they both are.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, you're the most important guy on the team. And so Yachty doesn't run his things out either. Like, and people could bitch about him all the damn time in St. Louis. But if Yachty's going to yell at somebody in the dugout, and Yachty's Yachty, Machado's not there yet, but, like, I don't know. Like, there's something more to it. Like, I'm not going to run it out because I don't want to rip my hip flexor out. Okay, fine. But he's moping and pouty, like the optics of him sitting there. Like, man, I remember pulling that stuff one time when I was young. I swear to God. And I just thought, like, why am I down to Myers? I got sent down. I got this. And I swear, it was so – I look back at it, I'm like, you are such a jackass. And I remember getting, like, third star one time in Lowell, and I didn't even skate on the ice. I was skating out like this. And I got ripped for it. I'm like, what am I doing? And all of a sudden you have a little wake-up call because, like, all this stuff happens so quick for you. And I think that there's more to it, and he's just kind of pouty. And Machado's like, no, I've done that too. But now I'm telling you, because we're both the big boys, wake up a little bit here. Anyway, sorry.
So
I love it.
Oh, it was Saturday. I know we do this every week, and there's some recency bias, but Saturday was the best game of the season that I can remember. Now, you've had some awful losses. You've had a couple comeback wins. But because it was Saturday night, huge crowd, everything going on with the 2011 World Series team, the way that game progressed, and let's now turn the tables to the Cardinals and give all the love to Bro Neal, because in the same vein where Tyler O'Neill got called up, got rang up twice on bad calls, And look, I'm not complaining about the umpire guy, especially.
Oh, you can. He was awful.
No, I'm going to. Believe me, I'm going to. I'm talking about historically. I'm not complaining about the umpire guy.
Okay.
If it's one baseball off of the strike zone, I get that. I understand if it's just it's one baseball. When you start to be 2 and 3 baseballs outside of the zone and you're missing those calls, I mean, that was so obvious on Saturday night. And Phil Cuzzi, who, when you go to these umpire scorecards, by the way, his overall accuracy was 88%. The average is 94%. Okay? His outside the zone accuracy was only 85%. He called 73 of 86 true balls, meaning outside the zone, correctly. 13 pitches outside the zone. And if you go to Twitter and you check this at ump scorecards, I mean, Jim Heuer, look at this.
It's one of the worst of the season.
These aren't borderline.
They were not.
This was a 1990s Greg Maddux or Tom Glavine, Eric Gregg.
Livan Hernandez.
Yes, Livan Hernandez, Eric Gregg strike zone, where if the catcher set up a foot outside and you hit his glove, it was going to be a strike. I mean, that was awful. And I mention all those things because it was a big story in the game. But Tyler O'Neill, 2 times, the bat was absolutely taken out of his hand. And he had some words for Cuzzi. Don't get me wrong. He politely or not so politely told him, hey, those are not strikes. But guess what? He didn't get ejected. He was still in the game to come through the next time and hit a freaking amazing 2-run homer to give the Cardinals the win. And I think that's poise right there, man, because, look, we've seen Joey Votto, by the way. Joey Votto has gotten run in some games earlier this season, and after the fact, he goes, man, I was so amped up. It was the first inning, though. Tyler O'Neill not getting ejected is one of the main reasons the Cardinals were able to come back and win that game. You got to give him props for that.
Absolutely true. I mean, well, to the point where the guy we just got done talking about in the other dugout caused a ruckus in the dugout over there with his own team and also got his manager ejected during that game. That was the other part of that. Tingler had to kind of jump in to save Tatis from getting kicked out. But, yeah, twice, not just once, but twice, as you pointed out, O'Neill had to bite his tongue. He said his piece. I think he just kind of looked and said, come on, man, those were way outside. That wasn't even close. He didn't say the magic word.
He's a good Canadian boy.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. But thank goodness it saved him because they needed him to come through late in the game, and he did, man. It is an amazing thing to see little things like that make a difference in a game like that. And we've seen it a lot this week. The game on Wednesday night was a similar one up in New York, where it was a ton of little things here and there that made the difference, that kept you in the game, kept certain guys around, and they made plays when it mattered. And that's what makes this fun right now, because you're at 2 weeks left in the season, and you got a matchup tonight with Milwaukee. Milwaukee's magic number is 3, and you're like, both of these teams are going to be on high alert, just playing the best baseball they can. It'll be great.
Text line is popping. Go ahead.
I got to say, splashback nose. Hey, sorry there, but those weren't strikes there, eh, bro, Neil? And it's like I'm telling you, Canadians are so easygoing, awesome people.
Come on, boss.
Where you could be like,
outside,
your wife is. Well, that's not very nice there, eh? Oh, sorry about that there. Well, you want a beer? Okay, we're good. Like that's probably what he says. Like, that wasn't, those weren't strikes there, eh?
Let's have a Molson after the game and talk about it, eh?
I'll buy you a beer. It's all good.
Labatt's Blue. No, you're probably right. He probably didn't get ejected because he's Canadian. Honestly,
he's Canadian.
He said he probably ripped Phil Cuzzi a new one in the most perfect, polite Canadian way that Phil Cuzzi couldn't eject him. And I also wonder if Phil Cuzzi realized that he was so bad, like, he had already impacted the game so much. Yeah, and by the way, sometimes the zone, it kind of evens itself out. It did not in that game. That whole ump scorecards, the game was called plus 1.77 runs for San Diego, meaning about 2 runs in the favor of San Diego in a 3-2 baseball game. That shows you there. And that's another part of this. I get it. I do the same thing, but Yu Darvish knew. Yu Darvish just kept going outside. And if you're a pitcher, you got to do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to give me 1 baseball, okay, now I'm going to throw 2. Oh, my God, you're giving me 2. I'm going to go 3. Oh, my God, you're giving me 5 inches on the outside corner. Those hitters did not have a chance. That's where also you go up there when you don't know what a strike is, right? You have no comfort You don't know. You can't lay off a close pitch. That curveball, that breaking ball, that big sweeping one to Nolan Arenado, that was borderline, but still, that thing started really, really high.
Oh, the big lollipop?
The big lollipop curveball. I mean, they really, the Cardinals' big-time hitters had the bats taken out of their hands in crucial situations at least 3 times I can remember off the top of my head.
It was awful from his standpoint, but you got to give your guys credit if you're the winning team because you persevered through something that just wasn't on the up and up.
Text line 855-282-8255. Jimmy D is agreeing with Jim. And by the way, I just don't have a good memory. I can only remember the last series. So yes, that Mets game, he says, just me personally, I think the extra inning game against the Mets last week where Goldie has that amazing double play at first, and then the throw home to Yachty to get the runner to end the inning was the turning point of the season. We lose that game, and we are 1.5 out in the playoff spot. And that's where, look, the narrative has also changed where for a month or two, Jim and Cam, we were saying, well, was that, because we'd come in on a Monday, well, was that game the worst loss of the season? Or we'd come in, hey, was that one the worst loss of the season? Hey, that one, do you think that was the worst loss of the season? And now we're trying to piece together in 1 week what are probably the 2 best wins of the season.
A lot of worse losses this season, but they were bad at the time. So, like, how can you not chirp them at the time? And people even chimed in on a text line, by the way, Charlie Marlow. They're bashing Bernie Miklasz for calling the guys out all. Well, I'm just saying, the Burn Dog's probably like, no, well, here's what I have in front of me. I got my stats down. Like, this is what's going on. Like, they're bad at the time. Now they put a stretch together. Look, thank you, MLB. That's what you could lose 30 games in a row. And all of a sudden, the back stretch, you could just be really good and win, whatever, and you're in the mix. But the ups and downs that it puts you through, but literally, I'm not chirping the guys that were bashing the Cardinals. They were bad.
Well, we all
were.
By the way,
what do we do?
First of all,
now they're good. It is what it is.
Bernie, everybody on this station,
the Burn Dog.
You're calling them like you see them. And for 100 games, there was a lot to bash. That doesn't mean you can't give them credit now. And the other part of this is, by the way, you gotta watch and critique and enjoy the games you have in front of you. Now for 3 months we talked 95% negative. Actually, no, it was 80% negative, and we would talk 20% when Adam Wainwright started a game. That was the season. That was the Cardinals season for about 120 games. And just so everybody knows, just because the Cardinals are 10 games over, they've gotten to a spot where, look, the division is not there for them. So they have a 1-game wild card. That's the facts of the matter here is no matter how well they play, and of course you want them to win the wild card, but they've also put themselves in a position because of how they played earlier this year where they only have 1 9-inning game to advance and get a real series in the postseason. But I'm telling you, now I know Max Scherzer's a different cat, but if you're a Dodgers fan, I mean, you got some PTSD from 13 and 14. Honestly, if you're a Dodgers fan and you see the Cardinals,
remember that, you think?
Oh, the fans. I'm not saying the players, but the fans, absolutely. And here's another part of this.
Yeah, the fans probably do.
Okay, if the Cardinals can somehow find a way to beat a Max Scherzer or a Walker Buehler and the Dodgers in a wild card game, and of course that's not easy. But now think about the Cardinals and how they could piece together a pitching staff and a bullpen if they're getting Dakota Hudson back to pitch out of the pen, if they're getting Jack Flaherty back to pitch out of the pen. Now, of course, beating the Dodgers is a tall task. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But if they're somehow able to get a National League Division Series, and you have Adam Wainwright, you feel good about him. You have some bullpen pieces now you're feeling pretty good about. 3 or 4 guys. You got some off days in there. And even the likes of a John Lester, Miles Mikolas, okay, are they going to go 7 innings in the postseason? No. But if they go a good 4 innings and you can piggyback a Dakota Hudson or a Jack Flaherty, all I'm saying is if the Cardinals can somehow find a way to a series, the pitching situation looks a whole hell of a lot better now than it did a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, the options are long as opposed to before it was the big 3 and pray, right? That was the way Cardinals are trying to close out and win games. If Adam wasn't pitching, it was, can we get to the 7th with the big 3? Otherwise, we're praying and hoping that something happens that will be beneficial to us because the Cardinals were not able to do it for themselves. But now You've got decent enough pitching, and you also are getting contributions from everybody in the lineup. Defense is out front right now, by the way. It's just staring you in the face with the gold star. You go, wow, there's another great play. There's another great play. And it wasn't, by the way, going back to yesterday's conversation with yesterday's game, it wasn't for San Diego. Remember the air by, guess who? Fernando Tatis in center field. That was a big part of opening the floodgates and allowing the Cardinals to walk through and build the lead.
Text line 855-282-8255. Get him in. We'll read him for the next 19, 20 minutes. Joe Booze Rum says, I just hope this resurgence doesn't run cover for this front office and the offseason. So Joe Booze Rum saying he hopes still the Cardinals get aggressive. And I actually think they will at the shortstop position this offseason, but we shall see. Big Boss Anoco says the Cardinals are 23-13 since Big Irish Mike Shannon said the team was not good. They weren't, and they deserve to hear it.
Right,
that's another
man.
part. They weren't good. Guess what? Mike Shannon, who's seen more baseball than Mike Shannon? They weren't good, and that's why, you know what? Adam Wainwright said the perfect thing because he's the freaking perfect human. He never does anything wrong. He said the perfect thing yesterday to the fan base. It wasn't, and I'm sure deep down in the clubhouse, they're probably saying, yeah, screw you, media. You guys are all ripping on us. Yeah, screw you. How do you like us now? Right? But they didn't say that. And Adam Wainwright would never say that. But what he said was, fans, you know what? We weren't playing well. We weren't. It was on us. And we understand why for a while there, you weren't coming out. But this atmosphere over the weekend, with the 2011 team in town, and especially that Saturday night, you gave them a boost. And Adam Wainwright said, fans, we need you. We need your help. Come on out. I know.
God, is he perfect?
He is.
God.
He said, look, I know it was bad for a while. I know we were playing uninspiring baseball, add in everything with COVID and all that. But guess what? Now we're playing well. We need you. Come on back. I mean, it's just the perfect thing.
That's just what you say, because you did suck. And if you can't bash people for bashing the team when they sucked. You can't. I don't like people that kiss the team's ass when they suck. That's the people I don't like. You got to know that when they're bad, and they certainly were, and they were losing games in bad ways. The Blues have gone through it. The Rams have gone through it. They've all gone through different. You know when a team's good and they have a bad game. You don't bash them for that. But when a team's not there and they're 500 and they're this and that, and maybe they got hurt, but they're just not good, and you're not doing enough, this, that, and the other, it's not working out, you got to rip them. It is what it is. Doesn't mean you don't go support them, but you have to call them out. But once they get good, you have to be honest with what the situation is. But you can't look back on it. I mean, we all called them out. We did with the Blues last year as well. But they're good now. They're figuring it out. So there you go.
There you go, baby. Splashback says, do you think they scrapped Jeff Albert's approach? Honestly asking there. I will say, now when Jeff Albert was really kind of, on the chopping block there, I did notice that Ryan Ludwig one series was hanging around in uniform. And so I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason. We shall see. But clearly Jeff Albert is the hitting coach now. And look, when a team is hitting poorly, we blame the hitting coach. We blame the players. When they're hitting better, you got to give the hitting coach more credit. I always, good or bad, I credit the players more. And just specifically, if you look at some of the guys, for example, offensively, Paul Goldschmidt, after a really, really rough start, has been fantastic for about 2-3 months here. And that's a veteran guy. He's got 10 years in the league. He's a stud. He was going to figure it out. Okay, another one is they're also now playing Edmundo Sosa over Paul DeJong. Okay, that's a big part of this as well. You can't have so many holes in your lineup. And so I think, look, Tommy Edman has been a great table setter. Separating Arenado and Goldie has really worked. And I don't know if it's specifically because of that, but also Goldie getting going. Tyler O'Neill fits perfectly there. Tyler O'Neill is arguably the best all-around outfielder in baseball. If you think about defensively, running the bases, and the man almost has a 900 OPS. And then Edmundo Sosa is playing more, hitting better. Harrison Bader, right? He wasn't the July guy that was unbelievable, but he's been a stabilizing force. So overall, Jim, I would just say that we never said the Cardinals' offense had to be great. They just had to be decent. If they're middle of the pack with an amazing defense, okay, the pitching has stabilized. If the Cardinals can just scratch 4 runs, 3 runs in most of these games, they'll have a chance to win a lot of these games. And that's what we're seeing offensively recently.
Better play out of the 3 guys in the middle of the lineup. You're scoring runs that way. And here's another thing to think about. With O'Neill this week, I'm just going to circle this week alone with him. He was a guy who was having trouble with runners in scoring position.
Mm-hmm.
He was having a good year. His power was there. But when you looked at it, it was like, well, he only had like 50 home runs and 20-something RBIs. Like, well, that's a guy who's hitting 1-run homers a lot. But this week alone, multiple run homers in key spots late in games. That's stepping up and making that lineup a lot tougher to face, because if you're a guy who's on the mound against the Cardinals and you got O'Neill and you're going, yeah, but I don't want to walk him because the guy behind him's working on 100 RBIs this year. I got to let O'Neill hit. O'Neill's coming through now. And, circle his name. He has been a huge part of why things are going better, because they're having to pitch to him, and then he's taking advantage of the opportunity and coming through.